Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us for our ninth session in our first ever virtual 55 and Better Expo series. My name is Lindsay Haynes. I am the event manager with Prairie Mountain Media, and I will be the moderator for today's session. So before we begin, I did want to let everybody know that whether you're on a mobile device, a tablet, or a computer, you do have the option to participate in our chat and our Q&A portion of the webinar today. So if you hover over the bottom of your Zoom screen, there will be a Q&A portion and then also a chat portion. So if during the webinar today, if at any point you have a question in relation to the topic, you'll just enter it there. And then after the presentation concludes, we will be hosting a question and answer session. So today's session will cover mobility through auto accessibility and then how to access your community through that. So we have with us Lisa McBride. She is the executive director for Frontier Access Mobility. And so that being said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Lisa.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. All right, well, thank you all for coming out today to hear a little bit about auto accessibility and accessing your community. I am Lisa McBride. I am the executive director here at Frontier Access, and we'll just dive right in. Let me try that again. There we go. So, do you remember trying to get your kids out of the house and into the car? Trying to get everybody fastened into car seats, making sure you've remembered all the necessities, the snacks, the coats, the toys, sippy cups, blankies, the works. Do you remember the chaos from those days? Like me, it may be behind you now, or maybe you're right in the middle of it still. Either way, it's exhausting. So now imagine doing that again, but with aging or ill family members. As many of us, like myself, are reaching the age of taking on our aging grandparents, our parents, maybe even a partner or a spouse. Sure, the routine is a little bit different. We aren't chasing one toddler across the yard with one on our hip. Well, I hope you aren't. But the confusion and the frustrations are still there. So trying to plan enough time for everything, trying to get everybody ready and into the car, whether it's for a doctor's appointment or just a needed break from the confines of our quarantine life now. Trying to get someone you love out of the house and into the car and out in the community takes on a whole new meaning when they have mobility challenges. Most people don't realize that there are options out there that can make this process a little bit easier. Now, many folks that have family in facilities, our local facilities have some great transportation, buses or vans that'll help get your loved one to or from an appointment. But in this day and age, having people on public transportation is making us all a little uncomfortable. So having the ability to take our own family members to and from appointments gives us a sense of security. But if you've ever tried to get an aging parent, grandma, someone into your SUV, it's about what it feels like, doesn't it? So having the ability to transport your loved one in your own vehicle would be a lot easier, we would hope. Now, wheelchair accessible vans have been around for quite some time, but they've only become more readily available in the last several years. And being able to drive something that isn't the size of a bus or a full-size van, knowing that there's a minivan makes that a whole lot easier to drive around in. Now, wheelchair accessible vans, as this one seen here, make it really easy to wheel your loved one straight up into the vehicle. They can stay in their chair or their equipment without having to deal with multiple or painful transfers in and out of seats. They can wear a regular seatbelt and have their chair tied down and have a safe ride. Now, these vans are pretty spacious. You need the room for all the extras, not just the person in the chair, but all the other stuff that still has to come along with us. And now it may look like oxygen concentrators and walkers, and you're still dealing with snacks and coats and all that good stuff. Now, purchasing one of these vehicles may not be the option for everyone. They are an investment. They can be expensive. So the other options that are out there that people don't often realize is that you can actually rent one. Renting a van to get someone home from the hospital instead of using a medical transport can save you hundreds of dollars. If you just need it for the short term, renting is also a great option. If you only need it once in a while, not every day, purchasing your own vehicle can seem like a little bit of an overkill. So knowing that there is something else you can do is helpful. We also think that renting a van is a great way to try one out. Find out if the investment is something you're ready for, and if this type of vehicle is going to fit your lifestyle and what your needs are. So a little bit about the vans themselves. Most of the vans that we deal in are going to be the Toyota Sienna, the Chrysler Pacifica, the Dodge Grand Caravan, and the Honda Pilot. So the company that we go through for conversions is called VMI, or Vantage Mobility. And the great thing about Vantage Mobility is that they're housed in our own backyard. Well, Phoenix, Arizona, closest to our backyard. So VMI has got a great website, which we've shown you here a few shots from their site, that make looking and checking into these vehicles easy. They give you some great videos on how they're made and all the safety features that go into creating these wheelchair vans, as well as a walk around, a walk through, being able to see it. As you can see, the wide openness of some of them once the seats are removed, those kinds of things. As you can also see, the great thing about these vans is that your wheelchair user isn't just confined to being a rear seat passenger. They can be a front seat passenger. They can even be a driver. And having that freedom, that independence is really important. There's different van models, and the different vans, just like we always say, it's like buying a new car. There's so many options out there, and finding the right vehicle for the right fit and what makes one different from another. And that works with what your needs are, whether you're in a power wheelchair or a manual wheelchair, if space is an issue, if headroom's an issue for our taller folks, making sure that we pick the right vehicle for you that's going to work all the way around. Now, there's also some different types of conversions. They've got the manual conversions and the power conversions. Manual conversions, you literally open the door and pull the ramp out with a nice handle. Some people have found they really like these for the lack of moving parts, less electronics, all that kind of stuff. And then they've got the super nice power options where you push a button, the door opens, the ramp comes out, and it does all of the work for you. Again, everybody's needs are going to be a little bit different. Now, there's also a whole list of other options that some people need, some people don't. Things like being able to electronically fasten in a wheelchair without having to deal with straps or tie downs, as we call them. There's also power transfer seat bases. If transferring is still something that they're able to do and would like to sit in an actual van seat instead of their equipment, there are bases designed to help rotate and get people into the correct position to transfer for that. Our job is to ask you lots of questions and find out what your needs are in a van and how you're going to be using it. So these vans are definitely an investment. As you can see, they're not cheap. Now, we work with a lot of people that like to work with their own banks and their own credit unions and finance their vehicles themselves, and we're happy to work with that. We've also discovered a great financing company that we work with called Brandel Mobility Finance. The great thing with Brandel is they understand what these vehicles are, that you aren't purchasing just a minivan, that you are purchasing a minivan with a wheelchair conversion. So the price tags don't look the same. And you're not looking at just a Kelley Blue Book value on these. The great folks with Brandel, we can help get people hooked up, and we stay in communication with them through the whole process. It makes the van sale seamless and as easy as possible. As I said, we don't want to just put any person into any van. We want to make sure that you're getting what you need. Now, we do keep stock at both of our locations, and we try to maintain a good fleet of vehicles with a lot of different price points so that there's something to meet everybody's need. We've got new ones, we've got used ones, and the only thing we can't do is we can't do free. So again, we don't want to make that buying or renting process difficult. We want purchasing one of these vans to broaden the future of possibilities for you, to remind you what it is to be independent, to get out there in your community, to be able to go to the store. COVID won't be around for us forever, and eventually we'll be able to get back out there. It's about making sure that all of us have the right to get out there and do what we need to do to live our best lives. So the vans are super great, and we would really love to see anyone that needs one to be able to have one. But we also know that they're a very big investment and they're expensive. So there are other options out there. So if the vehicle you have is great, works fine for getting your loved ones where you need them to go, but maybe it's the inability to lift and put a wheelchair into the back of your car, or there's just not enough room for those power pieces of equipment like power wheelchairs or scooters. So the company we work with is called Bruno Independent Living Aids. And you can see here a few of their options for different types of lifts. They have a crane style that will pick up the equipment and swing it into the vehicle. There's platforms that you just drive up on and it'll lift the equipment up into the car. And then there's outside options, which are very popular for carrying your equipment behind the vehicle when you don't have space inside. Now, of course, these lifts and stuff aren't going to work. Every lift isn't going to work on every vehicle, and every lift won't lift every piece of equipment. So again, our job is to get all those questions and then tell you what lifts might work for you in your vehicle and for your equipment. So Bruno that we're showing here, their products, again, we strive really hard to keep the work here in our own country. Bruno is made in the USA. They're out of Wisconsin. So it makes it easy to get them ordered in and get them installed here locally for you in a very good time frame. Some other options out there are alternative driving controls, as we call them. Just a reminder that just because we lose the ability to use our legs, we don't lose the ability to drive a vehicle, that there are lots of options out there. And this makes it so freeing for people. Here we have an example of hand controls that can be installed, or even a left foot gas pedal. We see that a lot where just that one foot that doesn't want to cooperate anymore. It doesn't mean that you can't operate it. It just means relearning some things. Of course, installing this type of thing, there are some rules and guidelines that surround them. And we have to recommend people to go through a local driving evaluator and certification process so that you can be taught how to drive differently. And we work with a number of providers, both in Colorado and Wyoming, for driving accessibility and learning on those. So, why would you choose Frontier Access as someone to go through for your auto access needs? And just a little bit more about us. We are local in both Fort Collins and in Cheyenne, and we've been around since 2000, before 2000, so over 20 years, and we're still growing strong. We're not going to go anywhere. It's getting more and more important to be able to purchase something in your local area and know that you're going to have continued services for that product. And that's our goal, is always to be there. That we're there from the sale all the way to when you no longer need the equipment. We do hold an accreditation for our auto access. It's a voluntary basis that we do this. It helps hold us accountable as a company. It makes sure that we're providing quality equipment and that our installers and our sales team are trained in these installations. We believe in continuing education. Technology continues to grow and change, and we have to make sure we understand that and we grow with it. So all of our salespeople and our technicians have to undergo continuing education on an annual basis to make sure that they understand this equipment and can answer all your questions. So that's a lot of information in a short amount of time. That was obviously much shorter than I expected. But I want to thank you all for coming today, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. That was great. And it's kind of hard to even know with technology that's, it's moving forward so quickly and rapidly. It's hard to know what's even out there, right? I mean, I'll totally admit that I didn't know you could add on those things to like your gas pedal, for example. So I think that's amazing. So I did want to ask a quick question just about that part of it. So you talked about that you do have to, take a little bit of an extra step, get that driving certification. So what's the timeline like on that? I mean, is it like a driving course where you have to kind of do a couple practices and, you have to pass? And then what's the cost normally look like on something like that?
The cost on that, it does range, and it depends on the level of need and the person's, how much change has happened to them and what extent they're going to need driving controls. Mm-hmm. The driving evaluator takes the time to figure out that person and what their driving skills are. So it does vary from person to person and depending on what they need, versus a left-footed gas pedal to full-on hand controls.
That's so cool. So what do the hand controls, control? Could you elaborate just a little bit about that?
Sure. Pardon me. So hand controls are designed they're a manual feature to take the place of your legs. So using your hands to control the gas and the brake instead of your feet. And there's various different applications for that. Some of them are very basic, a rod pushing down the gas pedal. Some of them are more complex, even dealing with the electronics of the vehicle. So it really depends on the vehicle and the driver as to what their needs are.
That's so cool. That's great. So we did have a question come in from the audience. Is it a special Colorado driver's license that is issued after this certification for the driver?
You can get the credentials on your driver's license, but you're actually given a certificate and a prescription from the driving evaluator themselves.
Okay.
And that's what we require in order to move forward and begin that installation process.
Okay, so they do have to have that before they can even have it
Correct.
installed. That's great. So another quick question for you. So somebody asked, can I just put a wheelchair ramp on my van?
That's a very good question. Whenever you're looking at a ramp on a vehicle, one, it has to be stored inside that vehicle somewhere. So either you're picking it up and folding it and you have to have the space inside to store it, along with the fact that depending on the height of the vehicle, you may have too steep of an incline with just a regular ramp. With these wheelchair accessible vans, they've actually lowered the floor on them to reduce the height. And then the vans also have a feature where they kneel or they lean to one side towards the ramp, creating, a very, very low threshold to have to be able to push somebody up into it. So if you've ever tried to push something up a ramp, even a dolly with something on it, if it's steep, that's a lot of effort.
Right.
So yeah, keeping that incline as low as possible is important.
So a little bit about the vehicles that you can have. I know you mentioned that some things can be installed in a vehicle that you already have. But we did have a question. Do you take trade-ins for vans that would qualify, even if they're not converted by chance?
It depends. Like everything, we're a small business. We got to control what we take in and that we have to be able to turn around and do something with that as well. We do work with local dealerships to sell off vehicles for trade-ins. And so that's always an option. VMI, the conversion company, does allow us to ship them vehicles to be converted. They have to meet strict guidelines for the age, the mileage, and what type of vehicle. So if you already own a 2019 Toyota Sienna, it can certainly be sent in and converted based on the mileage as well.
Okay. So do you buy back vehicles that were purchased from you, maybe if somebody doesn't need them anymore after a certain amount of time?
Knowing where a vehicle comes from gives us that much more peace of mind as to where that vehicle's been and that we can turn around and sell it to somebody else who might need it.
Great. So will a handicapped vehicle fit and be accessible in a standard size garage? Or does it normally have to be handled like outside or on the driveway? Or
with a side entry vehicle, again, you're dealing with a straight up regular minivan. So they're going to fit in where anywhere else a minivan would fit in a garage and whatnot. What the difference is the space beside it that's needed, the width of the space, so that the wheelchair user can still be able to access the ramp on the side. There is also rear entry vehicles available where the ramp and everything comes out the rear of the van. And again, these are just regular minivans. So the chassis, the body of the van, it's still a minivan. So they're great. They fit everywhere else the minivan does.
That's great. And that actually does kind of lead into my next question for you. So what are the different benefits of a side entry versus a rear entry?
With a rear entry, certainly being able to park in a parking lot and not have to worry about the side space is always a good feature. The space inside the vehicle is different for when you're dealing with a rear entry versus a side entry. You're going to end up with a very set channel for where the wheelchair can sit in a rear entry. Your user's not going to be able to sit in a front passenger or driver position within a rear entry. But we do
Oh,
see
right.
them
Mhm.
being very, very prominent when you're dealing with children, where you still need a couple other seats in there and
Mhm.
those kinds of things. So
Okay.
the side entry is the more popular of the two, but it really depends on what it's going to be used for regularly.
Okay. And so then as far as the safety goes, do you have to make sure that you're in, like a wheelchair, for example, that can be locked, or do you still wear some kind of harness of some kind when you're there? How does that work?
With these vans, you're utilizing the regular seatbelt system
Okay.
built by Chrysler, Toyota, whatnot. Um, in the floor, they install as part of the conversion a track where the seatbelt um, part actually hooks into the floor.
Oh,
And
okay.
those can be moved where they need to be for fitting of those different sizes of wheelchairs,
Hmm.
but you're actually still using the fully crash tested system of the manufacturer.
Okay.
And then
Great.
the tying down of the wheelchairs themselves is done either with a strap system that straps into the floor and you're anchoring those chairs down so they don't move,
Hmm.
or you're using some form of an electronic lock-in base.
Okay. Um, and I know you showed a couple pictures, but so is it completely customizable? Are there a certain number of seats that you can versus you can't have, or is it kind of like just depends on what the user wants to use it for?
There's a couple different conversion packages that are offered, and that can change what's available in the seating. In a standard conversion, where we saw the picture with the side entry, you still have that rear bench seat that has all three seat belts, fully
Hmm.
functional, so you can actually still fit people back there. Then it's going to be about the size of the wheelchair that's going in that center space and what your space looks like.
Hmm.
They also offer a commercial version that allows for what we call a jump seat, fold down jump seat on the side. So it's more of a knockdown version with less features, but provides for the facilities and that kind of stuff
Hmm.
as well. A lot of this is you can choose your features within the different conversion types.
Hmm.
For the vans themselves, you're getting the same package you would if you bought it off of a lot, whether it's the XL or the limited edition and all the features that comes with. So if you want the video package, you can have the video package still.
Hmm.
So
That's great. So as far as the center space, if you decided to do the side ramp and you were loading in that way, could you have a seat that's on, like one side, or do you recommend that they leave that whole space open and you just have people behind you and in front of you?
like I said, only the commercial option has that side seat available option.
Okay.
The
Okay.
rest of them do not.
Great. Um, Oh, okay. So another question too. So as far as the weight of wheelchairs or maybe like a scooter or something, is there a limit? Or can you use a portable scooter or something like that in, these types of vehicles?
That's a good question as well. The ramps on these vans are weighted up to, I believe, 750 pounds or even higher.
Hmm.
So that's the equipment plus the person on them. And most of these power wheelchairs, these big heavy duty power wheelchairs you see out there,
Right.
they can weigh about 400 pounds just the chair themselves.
Hmm.
So the aluminum ramps that you may find at your local hardware store or something may not be able to handle that weight capacity. Um, and making sure that it's not going to damage your vehicle
Right.
in the process.
Yeah, definitely. And then I know you talked about it a little bit. So for warranty, for example, if you bought something from the company, what do the warranties usually look like? Is there things that they don't cover as far as the inside build, not in, like a car crash or something like
Right.
that?
Yeah. Your manufacturer of the vehicle, your Chrysler, Dodge, Toyota, they're going to have their standard manufacturer warranties that stay in place. So if you bought it brand new, the full warranty covers it as well.
Okay.
VMI has its own warranty coverage of 3 years, 36,000 miles. And that's for any manufacturing defects or anything like that, of course. And then, yes, we are going to be your warranty provider from beginning to end. So that's important to know that we're still able to work on that as well. We don't do oil changes, but we will do the maintenance for the conversion half of it.
Okay, great. So let's see. I just want to make sure I haven't missed anyone or anything. Okay, so I'm just, not me specifically, but one of the questions that came in. I'm just starting the process of looking into a mobility vehicle. So what are some things that I should know or be prepared to share before getting started?
We're going to want to know if you're the wheelchair user as well as the vehicle person who's purchasing the vehicle. And we're going to want to know what kind of equipment you're in. We're going to want to know if you're going to be a passenger or a driver or both. And we're going to want to know things like your height and your weight, just to know what kind of size of vehicle you may need as well. We're going to ask things like, do you have a preference in a vehicle brand? Some people, they're Toyota people all the way.
Right.
That's all they want to look at. Again, we want to find the right vehicle for what you need it to be, not just what we have available.
And then I guess too, what they use from day to day as well. So as far as like insurance, then afterwards, once you're ready to purchase, or you're kind of deciding those finance options. I know you mentioned the finance that you can help with financing, but do you accept like Medicare, Medicaid, anything like that?
Your medical insurances like Medicare and Medicaid are not going to cover this level of equipment.
Okay.
Their purpose is to provide mobility inside your home, not for out in the community or auto access particularly. Okay. Not to say that there aren't things out there available to help with some of that funding. But no, it's not something that's going to be going through Medicare for your vehicle.
Okay. And so I know for Frontier Access Mobility, you guys offer more than just, the vehicle mobility. And so, as far as that goes, I know it's straying just a little bit from the topic of today, but I did want to ask you a couple questions just about the other products that you offer. Sure. I know you kind of, you have the vehicle options, you got the scooter options and whatnot, but are there anything else that your company offers or anything like that?
Sure. Frontier Access, our goal is to be that one-stop shop for anybody that has a mobility need, whether it's from your basic cane and walker all the way through the vans. So we do complex rehab wheelchairs, the big power wheelchairs with alternative driving controls, a basic wheelchair that you just need to get someone to a doctor's appointment for the day.
Okay.
And everything in between. We do home access as well, which is going to be ramping at the home, platform lifts or elevators to get people in and out of their homes, as well as what we call stairway elevators, the chairs that go up and down the stairs as well. So if there's a need for mobility anywhere, we probably do it.
Yeah, you cover it, or you cover those kinds of things. I know you do have like the chairs too, which is really cool. Those chairs that kind of lift. What are those called? I'm sorry.
We call them lift chairs. Yeah.
Lift chairs. Okay.
That lift up. Yep.
Yeah. Great.
We do those. We also do bath equipment, shower chairs. We've even supplied like the roll-in shower bases to convert a bathtub area into a roll-in shower.
Very cool. Yeah. Great. We did have a question that came in from the audience too. So we're going to backtrack a little bit. Sorry, Lisa. Is there, so going back to the specialized certification for the extra add-ons as far as the gas pedal or anything like that, is there a special insurance agent that is needed for the driver for when they have those kinds of accessories?
That's a good question. I haven't found that people need a special insurance provider or carrier for that.
Okay.
Which is something you definitely want to talk with your insurance carrier about.
That you're
as well
planning
as
on
these
doing
vehicles.
those.
Right. This
Okay.
isn't your average minivan. So if you're in an accident,
Hmm.
you want the same level of coverage you would for a regular minivan.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
making sure they understand how you use your vehicle, as well as what's involved with it.
Okay. Great. Well, you've answered all my questions. I think that was the last one from the audience as well. So I just wanted to say again, Lisa, thank you so much. Kind of like we touched on before, it is amazing where technology is taking us. And so it's great to know that these options to help people continue to live their normal lives as much as possible is out there for them. So
Right. Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you. We are recording this webinar today. So if you wanted to share this with anybody, if you know of anybody that would benefit from any of this information that Lisa shared, you can view it again on our website. So that's going to be Northern Colorado 55better.com. And there you'll also be able to find out more about more about the sponsors that we have. You can register for our other webinar series that we will be hosting for the rest of this week and next week. And then if you just wanted to find out a little bit more about Frontier Access Mobility and what they offer, those resources will be there as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. And we will see you again tomorrow, same time, same channel. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.